The classroom was silent except for the scratch of pencils and the whisper of nervous students. All eyes turned toward him when the teacher sneered, "You're dumb. Why even try?" Laughter echoed around the room, stabbing his heart, but he didn't move. He felt small, shaken, but something inside refused to break. A piece of chalk hovered in the teacher's hand, then slammed down as she wrote the hardest math problem on the board, its numbers twisting like a puzzle meant to trap anyone who dared try. Students exchanged worried glances, whispering it was impossible, that no one could solve it. Heart pounding, he stared at the problem, his mind racing, questions screaming in his head. Can he prove her wrong? Can he turn humiliation into triumph? Every second stretched like a lifetime, each tick of the clock a challenge, and in that tense, breathless moment, he knew this was his chance to show the world who he really was. The bell rang, echoing through the crowded classroom, but he barely noticed. He sat at the back, books stacked high, eyes glued to the desk, heart still racing from the teacher's cruel words. Every student around him seemed fearless, chatting and laughing, while he felt invisible, trapped in a storm of doubt. Though the world called him dumb, he remembered the quiet nights spent solving puzzles alone, the small victories no one saw, proof that he could think, that he could win. The teacher paced at the front, scribbling equations with an air of arrogance, while students whispered, waiting to see him fail again. Yet beneath the fear, a spark burned inside him, a secret determination ready to ignite. He clenched his pencil tightly, feeling the weight of expectation, humiliation, and hope pressing on his shoulders. All around him, the room held its breath, waiting as if the next moments would decide whether he remained invisible or became a force no one could ignore. The teacher's eyes landed on him, sharp and cold. "Why even sit here?" she snapped, pointing at him. "You can't solve anything, you're just dumb." A ripple of laughter ran through the classroom, cutting deeper than any knife. He felt every eye staring, judging, expecting him to fail. His cheeks burned, but he did not move, his fingers tightening around the pencil. He remembered every late night spent practicing math problems alone, every quiet victory no one saw, and a small flame of defiance flickered inside him. "I'm not dumb," he whispered silently to himself, but the words felt fragile against the weight of the room's laughter. Students snickered, exchanging mocking glances, while the teacher's lips curled in satisfaction. Each second dragged like an eternity, each heartbeat louder than the last, as he fought to keep his fear from showing. Though humiliated, he did not leave his seat, he did not cry out, he only stared at the chalkboard, waiting for the next challenge, his mind secretly preparing for a chance to prove them all wrong, knowing that this moment, painful as it was, could become the spark for something greater. The teacher turned to the board, her hand moving with authority as she wrote a series of numbers and symbols that twisted and tangled like a trap. "This," she said, voice sharp and cold, "is the hardest math problem in the class, and no one has ever solved it before. It's impossible for ordinary students." Whispers spread across the room, students exchanging nervous glances, some shaking their heads in defeat. He stared at the chalkboard, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the chaotic symbols. Each line seemed more complicated than the last, but somehow, deep inside, he felt a strange connection, as if the problem was speaking to him in a secret language only he could hear. His hands trembled slightly, but he didn't look away. A spark of hope mixed with fear ignited in his chest. He knew this was his moment, his chance to prove that the word dumb did not define him. Students leaned back, some laughing nervously, some skeptical, as he reached for his pencil, ready to dive into the challenge, his mind racing with possibilities, calculations, strategies, while the classroom held its breath, watching to see if he would crumble or rise above the impossible. He stared at the problem, his pencil hovering over the paper, heart pounding in his chest. Doubt crept in like a shadow, whispering that he wasn't smart enough, that the teacher was right, that failure was inevitable. He remembered the words echoing in his ears, "You're dumb." Memories of past mistakes, failed attempts, teachers who ignored him, and classmates who laughed flashed before his eyes. His hands shook, his mind clouded with fear, and for a moment, he almost gave up. But deep inside, a tiny voice refused to surrender. It reminded him of the nights he spent solving puzzles alone, the small victories no one noticed, the quiet strength that had kept him going. That he closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to silence the fear, trying to summon the courage buried beneath humiliation. Each heartbeat felt like a drum, each second stretching into eternity. As sweat formed on his brow, he realized that this struggle was more than math. It was a battle against every word that ever tried to define him. It was his chance to prove to himself and the world that determination and belief could conquer fear, even when everyone else doubted him. He bent over his notebook, pencil moving rapidly across the paper, erasing lines, recalculating, thinking, his eyes darting between numbers and symbols as if they held secret clues that he did not speak. He did not look at anyone. He was lost in a world of equations and patterns, each line demanding all his attention. Students whispered around him, some sneering, others curious, while the teacher observed, eyebrows raised, doubt clear in her eyes. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown, each second a challenge testing not just his mind, but his patience and willpower. He paused, hand on his forehead, breathing hard, trying to see connections no one else noticed. He flipped pages, scribbled formulas, erased mistakes, and started again, his movements deliberate, calculated, like a silent battle unfolding. His heart raced, his mind burned, his determination growing stronger with every failure that became a lesson, every wrong step a guide toward the answer lurking just beyond reach. The classroom seemed to shrink around him, noise fading, faces blurring, leaving only the problem and him, locked in a duel of intellect and courage. He felt the tension tighten in his chest, but he refused to quit, refused to let humiliation define him. This silent effort was more than solving math. It was a fight for respect, self-belief, and proof that even the quietest student could rise above doubt and fear. Hours seemed to pass in moments as he scribbled equations and crossed out mistakes, his mind refusing to quit. Then, something clicked. A tiny pattern, almost invisible at first, popped into view. He froze, eyes widening, heart skipping a beat, realizing he had discovered a clue that others overlooked. A surge of hope shot through him, making his hands tremble, but this time with excitement rather than fear. He traced the numbers carefully, checking and rechecking, each calculation confirming the breakthrough, each new insight fueling his determination. Students began to notice, the whispers growing louder, curiosity replacing doubt. Some leaned forward, watching him with wide eyes, unaware of the storm of concentration and courage unfolding before them. The teacher's confident expression faltered slightly, sensing that something unexpected was happening, that the boy she labeled dumb was now a force to be reckoned with. His pulse raced, adrenaline pumping through his veins, as he realized this small breakthrough could be the key to solving the entire problem. The impossible no longer felt impossible. His mind sharpened, focus intensifying as he carefully mapped out the next steps, each movement precise, deliberate, like a chess player anticipating every consequence. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting as he stood on the edge of success, ready to turn humiliation into triumph with a single stroke of brilliance. Just as he started feeling confident, a sharp voice cut through his focus. "You'll never get it right." The teacher sneered, her eyes scanning the room, challenging him to fail again. Laughter erupted from some classmates, others shook their heads, convinced he would crumble. His hands paused over the paper, a cold doubt creeping into his mind, whispering that maybe they were right, that perhaps this problem was truly impossible. That he felt the weight of every mocking glance, every whispered insult, every past failure pressing down on him. The air seemed heavy, oppressive, as if the room itself was conspiring against his success. His pencil hovered, uncertain, as memories of being underestimated, ignored, or laughed at filled his mind. That he almost gave up, considered sliding the paper aside, letting the humiliation define him once more. But deep inside, a stubborn fire refused to die. He remembered the nights he worked alone, the moments when persistence turned failure into learning. That he clenched his fists, taking a deep breath, feeling his heartbeat steady, his mind sharpening against the fear and ridicule. Every obstacle became a challenge to overcome, rather than a reason to quit. This moment, as tense as it was, decided whether he would surrender or rise, whether the word dumb would hold power over him, or whether he would turn every doubt into fuel for triumph. He took a deep breath, blocking out every laugh, every mocking glance, every doubt that clawed at his mind. His pencil touched the paper again, his movements precise, deliberate, each stroke a battle against fear and ridicule. He visualized the problem in his mind, breaking it into smaller pieces, analyzing patterns, testing every possibility, discarding mistakes, and starting over with relentless focus. The classroom faded around him, students' whispers and the teacher's skeptical stare melting into silence. He wrote equations, erased them, recalculated, his heart pounding with every discovery, each insight sharpening his mind and fueling his determination. His eyes burned from concentration, but he did not falter. His body moved almost automatically, driven by a mix of adrenaline and unyielding resolve. He remembered all the nights he had struggled alone, solving problems no one noticed, learning patience, persistence, and resilience. He repeated calculations, checked steps, verified logic, ensuring nothing was overlooked. This was more than math. It was a battle of willpower, a test of courage, proof that he would not let humiliation define him. Every second was a heartbeat closer to victory, each moment intensifying the suspense as the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting to witness whether the boy they called dumb could rise above every obstacle and prove himself in the face of impossible odds. Finally, after what felt like hours, he put down his pencil, eyes wide, heart pounding, his hand trembling slightly. He stared at the paper, examining every line, every calculation, ensuring nothing was missed. His breath caught in his throat as realization sank in. He had solved it. The impossible problem, the one the teacher called unbeatable, the one that had filled the classroom with doubt and fear, was completed perfectly. His mind raced with disbelief and triumph, trying to process that he had actually done it. The teacher stepped closer, her confident expression faltering as she bent down to examine his work. Her eyes widened, then flickered with shock, surprise, even admiration, though she tried to hide it. Classmates leaned forward, holding their breath, some whispering in disbelief, others staring with open mouths, realizing that the boy they had laughed at had accomplished what no one else could. He felt a surge of pride, not arrogance, just pure satisfaction, proof that perseverance, focus, and belief in oneself could overcome ridicule and doubt. The classroom, once a place of humiliation, now felt electric, charged with awe and respect. As the teacher slowly nodded, her voice finally breaking the tense silence. "You got it right." Gasps and murmurs spread through the room, students exchanging amazed glances, while he sat back, smiling quietly, feeling every ounce of fear, frustration, and determination culminate in this single, defining moment. He had turned humiliation into triumph, proving not just to the class, but to himself, that he was capable of greatness, no matter what anyone said. The classroom erupted in whispers and amazed gasps as the teacher finally spoke, her voice tinged with reluctant admiration. "You didn't expect this," she admitted, eyes scanning his flawless solution. His heart raced, not from fear, but from a quiet, steady pride that filled every corner of his being. Classmates, once mocking, now stared with newfound respect, some nodding, others leaning closer to see the work that had stunned everyone. He felt the weight of humiliation lift, replaced by the warm, thrilling sensation of recognition. His shoulders relaxed, his chest swelling with confidence, as the teacher continued, "You have proven that intelligence and determination cannot be measured by appearances or past mistakes." A few students clapped quietly at first, then others joined in, the sound growing louder, echoing off the classroom walls, celebrating a victory that belonged to him alone. His eyes met a few classmates' gaze, seeing admiration where there had once been doubt and ridicule. A smile crept across his face, small but triumphant, as he realized that his quiet perseverance had spoken louder than any insult or laughter. The moment was more than praise, it was justice, it was acknowledgement of his effort, his focus, his courage to keep going when everyone else expected him to fail. He had not only solved the hardest problem, he had changed the way the class saw him, turning humiliation into triumph, proving that belief in oneself could transform fear into strength and doubt into respect. He leaned back in his chair, eyes still on the solved problem, heart finally slowing from the rush of triumph. He thought about every moment of doubt, every whispered insult, every late night spent practicing alone. The word, dumb, that had once haunted him now felt powerless, its weight replaced by a quiet pride. He realized that intelligence was not measured by others' opinions, but by persistence, focus, and belief in oneself. Each challenge, each obstacle, had been a lesson, teaching patience, resilience, and courage. That he smiled, remembering how fear had tried to control him, but how determination had won instead. The classroom buzzed with admiration and chatter, students seeing him not just as a boy who solved a problem, but as someone who had refused to be defined by ridicule. His mind replayed the journey from humiliation to recognition, understanding that this victory was more than a single solved problem. It was proof that hard work and self-belief could overcome any obstacle, that every insult could become motivation, and that even the quietest, most overlooked student could rise to greatness. Quietly, he promised himself that this was only the beginning, that every challenge ahead would be met with the same courage and focus, knowing now that nothing could stop him when he refused to give up. As he packed his books, he felt a quiet triumph settle in his chest, not loud or boastful, but deep and unshakable. The classroom, once a place of fear and ridicule, now seemed filled with respect and possibility. He realized that the word dumb had no power over him, that every insult and doubt had fueled the fire that led him here, that persistence and courage could turn humiliation into triumph. He looked around at his classmates, seeing admiration and surprise in their eyes, and smiled, knowing he had changed not only their perception but his own belief in himself. This moment, though just a single day, would echo in his mind forever, proof that determination could break barriers, that focus could conquer impossibilities, and that self-belief was stronger than any doubt. The boy who was once mocked had risen, not just by solving the hardest problem, but by refusing to be defined by fear or ridicule. His journey had ended here for now, but the lessons of courage, resilience, and hope would carry him far beyond this classroom, into a life where nothing could stop him.